On a random Tuesday in the startup press universe, I tripped over another article about another peer-to-peer fashion rental app landing another high seven-figure seed round from VC investors. And I'm not going to bury this particular company, but I just want to ask a simple question. Does the world need this app? For the unfashionable among us, fashion rental apps are exactly what they sound like. I've got this $500 pair of pants in my closet that I'm never going to wear again. And if you're among the unlucky people in my size range, you can rent them from me and send them back to me when you're done wearing them. Sounds like fun. But this is way beyond the scope of my understanding. In my mind, there are tons of perfectly good Old Navies and Marshallses, and I think there are even a few JCPenney's left offering high quality fashions at a fraction of designer costs. So like I said, I'm not going to scream at a bunch of trendy kids to get off my lawn. I'm going to assume they know what they're doing. But the VC should know better, especially you associates in your blue dress shirts and $500 khakis. You young folks should speak the bleep up. You can't keep funding these things. And as such, they just don't require massive seed rounds. The article starts off like there was a magical light bulb moment for the company to pivot from a more data-driven type of app to peer-to-peer fashion rental. Like, oh my God, why aren't people borrowing other people's pants? But this is not a light bulb moment in any sense of the term. Peer-to-peer has already come and gone. It's basically now seen as the gig economy equivalent of the brick and mortar store. In other words, a combination of two models where the economics are just awful. Furthermore, there's already like 1 billion peer-to-peer fashion rental apps. The article even lists 3 of them and then links to another article which lists a bunch more. I read the article looking for the twist, the killer feature in the app that positions this particular peer-to-peer fashion rental app as streets ahead of all the other P2PFR apps. Got tired of hyphenating. They did indeed state the secret sauce, and that sauce was targeting a lower overall retail value of the item being rented. But the price point they listed was exactly where all these apps play. A price point that, as stated in the article, is just low enough for a bunch of people to own the thing, but just high enough for more people to not own it. That's exactly where you'd put any P2P rental model. It's why Turo rents out mostly higher-end luxury vehicles, but not a lot of Ferraris or Rolls Royces, while brick and mortar, Hertz and the like, stick with mass market Impalas and Altimas, or at least they used to. I haven't rented a car in ages either. In fact, the business model is basically just the Turo model plus the Shopify model plus the Poshmark model, like all the other P2PFRs. Plus they've got a little social in there and they'll tack on AI as soon as possible, again like every other startup in the world. In fact, the entirety of the play just seems to be squeezing a certain square niche into the round hole of existing infrastructure, apps, payments, shipping, and trendy models, marketplace, P2P, implied value, regardless of the need for a product like this to exist. And again, I'm not harping on fashion here. This could be power tools or something equally as macho and old farty. Well, no, wait, there's actually an economic argument for renting power tools. For general contractors to weekend warrior projects, when you don't want to sink $1,000 into a high-end tool, but having it for a day, maybe at $50, might save $500 in labor. What's the cost of not having those pants? 0. Yeah, it tickles an aspirational key benefit, and that's cool. I get the point of fashion. There's just no need there at all. Nothing must have about the problem it solves that would turn a simple app marketplace into the proper kind of high growth business that would make a high 7-figure investment seem reasonable. It'd be a nice little business, and don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of nice little businesses. Or maybe if there was some IP there, they could maybe sell into Macy's or another high-end but not too high-end department store that I should know by name, but I don't because they're all struggling. Gimbals? You'd think, with the number of times the word trend or trendy appeared in the article, it's fashion after all, that it would immediately surface questions about the ability for the vendor side of this marketplace to make money in the long term. That's the big problem with nice-to-have two-sided marketplaces. They're just not sustainable for vendors, all the way back to Uber and DoorDash. And that fact is in print here in big flashing red letters, figuratively. Yet they keep funding these things. I know the idea of innovation is to look 5 to 10 years down the road and predict if a model will evolve into need versus want, but in what world does aspirational rental become a need? I don't want to live in that world. But look, this isn't about unfashionable me. This isn't even about fashion or peer-to-peer. It's about VCs and the press propping up reheated models based on chasing trends and in-the-moment customer feedback. It's that argument that the business is just giving the customers what they want and trying to cash in before the customer moves on to the next shiny thing. I didn't hodl enough crypto to get into the better parties. I never bought an NFT. I write my own articles instead of letting ChatGPT blather on for me. I guess that makes me much more unfashionable than not owning $500 pants. But if that's the case, then fine. I'll just turn up the collar on my members only jacket and walk away. So I want to be very clear about what I'm firing at here. I'm not trying to disparage any kind of startup idea or model. If you've got a great idea and you think you can make a business out of it, by all means, go ahead. In fact, the app that I'm referring to in the article could probably have been a decent high-tech, high-growth startup model as a data-driven play before they made that switch to fashion rental. My point is about the VC money coming in and the pivot to look and feel and act like a dozen or more existing plays. There's another way. There are a million other ways to start a company, start a business, and that's what I'm trying to get across. Not only with this post, but in some sense with every post I write. And that's a good opportunity for me to talk about Teaching Startup, which is my project to make more and better entrepreneurs by offering them access to the kind of advice that startup advisors give, 80% of the value of that advisor session at about 2% of the cost. If you go to teachingstartup.com, that's the way to support what I'm doing here. And as a member, you will get a weekly newsletter and access to over 700 questions, answers, posts, and polls that I'm writing and other experts like me are writing to help make more and better entrepreneurs. So support me, help you. Go to teachingstartup.com. I appreciate you. Go out there and do great things.